Today's episode is brought to you by Positively Productive Systems, whose mission is to be the antidote to your stress and to provide compassionate productivity resources and coaching that help you heal and achieve. Be sure to check out both free and paid resources at positivelyproductive.com/resources.
The challenge with doing the branding from the outside in is someone else is creating the things that they believe to be you. We need to brand people and companies because they're made up of people from the inside out. We need to align them and integrate them and ground them in those fundamental beliefs and truths. What is our purpose for doing this business beyond making money? What are our values, or as we call them, guiding principles? What are the expectations that we expect of our people? What are the ways that we're going to behave? How are we going to show up? How are we going to do business? Values and guiding principles. What's the vision we have for our business? Where do we want to go? Is this a rapid startup, build it, scale it, sell it with an exit strategy? Or is this a, hey, this is a lifestyle business for me as a solopreneur or a small business owner?
You're listening to the Positively Living Podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Zawrotny, founder of Positively Productive Systems and a coach certified in time and stress management, helping clients make space for what matters most in their lives. Join me each episode and we'll talk about decluttering, stress management, habits, personalized productivity, gratitude, and so much more. I understand the overwhelm of life because I'm a wife, mom to kids and cats, and a former caregiver. I'm here to help you choose what's right for you so you can do less, live more, and breathe easier. Sound good? Let's get to it. Welcome back to the Positively Living Podcast. I'm your host and fellow multi-passionate entrepreneur, Lisa, and we're talking about branding from a different angle today. If you're anything like my clients and me, you've thought about your brand before. And we've talked about branding in different ways on the show, like making it purpose-based on episode 85 with Ashley Sang, and understanding when you need to redo it on episode 64 with Maria Platusek. But have you thought about how your personal and your business brand connect and the best ways to approach that? I know since the beginning I've wanted my business to reflect me. And that makes sense because solo entrepreneurs often feel like their business is an extension of themselves. But my guest today helps us understand the benefits and the pitfalls of that approach and how we need to think about our brands in general. Today, I welcome Karley Cunningham to the Positively Living Podcast. As a business growth accelerator and brand strategist, Karley takes businesses from overcrowded competitive spaces into blue ocean territory where they can confidently stand out and thrive as brand leaders in their sector. Karley has built 3 successful businesses, and her entrepreneurial success story is featured in the awarded book, The Widest Net by Pamela Slim. In today's episode, Karley helps us understand that the distinction between product and people brands is really critical when we as solo entrepreneurs are developing ours. She also explains what goes into personal and business branding and who needs to oversee it. And this one will surprise you because she said it's actually not marketing. You'll want to listen for that. You'll walk away from today's episode with a clearer understanding of where connection and separation need to be for your most successful aligned business, and the first step to make sure that you've got the right approach and connection to your brands. At the end of the episode, Karley talks about purpose and values and how our clarity of those things is paramount. And when she spoke of what matters to you, I immediately thought of what my clients and I work on, and we discuss here all the time: values. You'll need to get clear on your values, strengths, and what you love. And I have a ton of resources to help you in the Positively Productive Free Resources Library. Head to positivelyproductive.com/resources and look for the core values and the joy list worksheets to start. Then if you have questions, I encourage you to message me. Welcome, Karley Cunningham, to the Positively Living Podcast. I'd love it if you tell us a bit about who you are, who you help, and what makes you light up.
Oh, you're stacking the questions already. You're making me step up this morning. Well, it's my absolute pleasure to be here. Thanks to your listeners for listening in. All right, who am I? I am a multi-passionate entrepreneur. I am specifically focused and passionate about supporting small and mid-sized businesses. Our work works with those who are at the growth and then at the scale stages of their business. And I'm especially passionate about supporting women entrepreneurs and marginalized entrepreneurs and all the folks that are facing an uphill battle in this game that we call entrepreneurialism. Let's talk about the problems I solve and then who do I help? So I help the folks that, well, now I'm flipping it again, but this is me. I'm good at riffing and confusing myself sometimes. I help the folks that I just talked about in specific. We work with motivated entrepreneurs in the financial space. And typically they're motivated to also help small businesses and mid-sized businesses grow. And so what we do with them, that can be accountants, insurance folks, it can be financial and wealth planners, all folks in the what I call the left brain side of the equation, and those who work with the numbers. We also work with the disruptors, change makers, and innovators of the world who are working to make the world a better place. Those who are helping us get our fishizzle together, fill in the blank of fishizzle. The problems I help those folks solve. Typically, when entrepreneurs and business leaders come to us, they're saying, we know we need to do some marketing, but we're not sure what marketing we need to do. Or our marketing and sales have flattened. Things have changed in the market. Help. We need more of the people that we need in our business. Those people can be team members. Most people are seeking A players. Those people can be ideal clients of various sorts. Those people can be investors. And those people can also be strategic partners and those who are, as my coach would say, a peanut butter and jelly fit for your business. So they're having trouble attracting those folks into their business to help it thrive. They're saying our team, they're just not telling the same story. Our messaging's all over the place. And that's causing us problems. You know, the internal dialogue about who we are and what we do is different from the external dialogue about who we are and what we do. So those are some of the key problems that I solve. The end game and end story of that is those are all symptoms of a larger problem. The organization in specific, those in the leadership house, that can be a solopreneur, that can be a leader with a supporting team underneath them, that can be a C-suite, is they're not clear on their fundamental beliefs and truths in their business. They're not aligning folks around those fundamental beliefs and truths because they're either foggy or don't exist down on paper, and they're not sure how to differentiate themselves.
Ultimately, when you are helping the numbers people, the disruptors, the people, like you said, that are saving humanity or at least trying, and I love that about you, okay? When you are helping them get clear on the beliefs and truths, and I love this because I was talking on the podcast with Ashley Sang about this and really, having that values-driven brand. It seems to all come back around to brand. And ultimately, although we could go in so many ways in this conversation, I would love your wisdom on really what is brand and what do we as fellow multi-passionate entrepreneurs need to know about it in order to come across the right way, get clear, and then translate that to others so we're connecting with the right people.
My point of view is that brand is an output. Right? So think about profit as an output in your business. You do a series of things. If you put those in an equation, which I think it's hilarious that I talk about mathematical equations because math was my worst topic, my worst subject throughout school. But so if you do a bunch of things right, it drives profit. It equals profit, right? Brand, same thing. It's an equation. It's a simpler equation. It is your reputation times your exposure equals your brand. Now, I would love to take credit for that, but that actually, and I like to pay credit where credit is due. The first time I came across that was from a brilliant marketing company called Hinge Marketing, and they're on the state side with you. But I just saw that and I absolutely loved it. Another way to think about brand is love them or hate them. Jeff Bezos said it. Your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. So you could be you as the person, because I know we're going to talk about personal brand today. We're also going to talk about company brand today. So you could be your business. So brand is what people say about your business when your people are not in the room.
So let's talk then about the distinction between the two, like the personal brand, the business brand, and what we need to know about that, the connection. Do they need to be connected? lead us through this, because I know that, at least for me, as an entrepreneur where I am my business essentially, it is very important to me to not only be very aligned, but come across consistently and authentically to others. And that actually makes it a lot more fun for me too. So there's a lot of goodness in this. But yeah, let's start with the distinction between the two and what the connection is or could be.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's a third aspect of brand that is worthwhile talking about. So it's product brand, and I'll tell you, I'll weave that in as well. And here's why: is another part of my point of view is that branding is not a marketing action. Responsibility of brand does not belong in the marketing department. It belongs in the leadership house, or it belongs with the leader of the business. And that could be you as the leader of one in a business of one, where you're delivering end to end, wearing all the hats. You could have some subcontractors. Here's the thing. Some people go, yeah, but our marketing department handles all of that. Yes, that is likely and should be a product brand that they're managing. So let's divide the difference between product brands and people brands. Product branding was really honed in the Mad Men days, back in the agencies, and they were essentially taking products and building them from the outside in. They would go out and do a bunch of market research. A company wanted to launch a new product in the market, or they said, hey, we think that there's a gap in the market over here. Let's talk about energy drinks. We know that in today's day and age, teenage boys, young men, they love energy drinks. There's Monster and there's all the sorts of different drinks. Well, they're saying, but we're not seeing any energy drinks for the same demographic on the feminine side, right? So they do the market research, they find the hole there, and they go, well, great, let's take what we've branded as the Monster or the Red Bull or the whichever, and let's repackage it and reposition it, possibly adjust the product a little bit for the feminine side of the equation. So what they're effectively doing is they're wrapping it from the outside in based on the data and the statistics and the market research, and they're creating a brand. You know, for a long time, it's been a shrink it and pink it equation. Let's just not go there, because you can tell I'm going to rant about that if we go down that rabbit hole. But here's the thing. A product doesn't care what you do with it or to it. It's an inanimate thing. It doesn't have thoughts, opinions, aspirations, ways of being and doing, or dreams. People have those things. Mm-hmm. So if you brand a person or a company, which is effectively a group of people in some way, shape, or form, if you brand them from the outside in, you're wrapping them in data and statistics and expectations and other people's opinions, beliefs, suggestions, recommendations, even if those are well-intentioned. I always use myself as an example. I'm not a skirt wearer. I'm not a dress wearer. I mean, sometimes I do like to wear them to fancy occasions, but it's not my style. I've been a tomboy and a jock my whole life. So
same, yeah.
You know, you show up and you tell me because I'm on stage in boardrooms, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, oh, we're going to dress you in this really beautiful pencil skirt with this frilly blouse. And I'm like, no, not. But a well-intentioning, very experienced person could be doing the market analysis and be like, this is how you're going to appeal to people. Well, I'll tell you what, that pencil skirt and that frilly blouse, I might buy into it if you're really good at selling it to me, because you can get me excited. And we as branders and marketers are really damn good at that. Mm-hmm. But it's going to turn into what I call an itchy sweater.
Yeah, you're not going to show up as you. Yeah, no. It's going to be so awful.
And it's progressively gets more and more uncomfortable. So the challenge with doing the branding from the outside in is someone else is creating the things that they believe to be you. We need to brand people and companies because they're made up of people from the inside out. We need to align them and integrate them and ground them in those fundamental beliefs and truths. What is our purpose for doing this business beyond making money? What are our values, or as we call them, guiding principles? What are the expectations that we expect of our people? What are the ways that we're going to behave? How are we going to show up? How are we going to do business? Values and guiding principles. What's the vision we have for our business? Where do we want to go? Is this a rapid startup, build it, scale it, sell it with an exit strategy? Or is this a, hey, this is a lifestyle business for me as a solopreneur or a small business owner? And there's a whole bunch of other tools that we build into our model and methodology, which is my coin thing that I call the surefire strategy. So when we understand those aspects of different ways to brand, then we get back to the equation of, and I know you were going down this road, so I'll run with it, is When you have a personal brand, that is you. And then you have a company brand that is your business. So I know that you had an opinion on that. And we talked a little bit about this in the green room. So I'm going to let you share that. And then I'm going to counter that with something else. And let's riff on it and see where we get to.
Okay. Well, here's the thing is that my opinion is only in terms of what I've experienced and what I had to come to terms with on my own as an entrepreneur. And it's a little reminiscent. I'll give a shout out to a fabulous marketing coach. Interesting. I love that you're like, well, this isn't a marketing thing, but I think marketing needs to be with us on this whole thing, right? Okay. And as a marketing coach, Mallory Schleybaugh, she was on an episode talking about authenticity in life and business. So there was that connection, and I do like to live by that. And it reminds me a lot of your itchy sweater theory, because there are things that I do, things about me, in needing to be authentic. And one of them, a great example, is my humor and my wackiness. And I'm thinking about your description of the outside in kind of thing. And it's like, listen, you're going to be doing a workshop. You're going to be in front of people talking about productivity. It's a very serious topic. And I'm like, it is not, and, just the idea coming from the corporate world where they really did have that outside in, like prison cell kind of philosophy on what you're allowed to do and not allowed to do. And it took me a while to break free from that. And for me personally, having those two aligned, being like, listen, I'm WYSIWYG here. What you see is what you get. And, so me personally and the business, we all stand for the same thing. It all matters to us. We are inclusive and loving. And the royal we here, meaning my business, Positively Productive, and me, Lisa. And anyone who works with me, anyone who is on the podcast, anyone who collaborates, anyone who makes a brochure for me. I don't do brochures, but whatever, like a workbook or something. Anyone I'm connected with, I am seeking to have align with those. And so to me, it's not that I consider my business and me to be one and the same, but I find it very important that we are wholly aligned and that I'm bringing my personality and my authenticity to every aspect of the business. That's where I stand, what I believe in, and I would love to see what you think.
That was fantastic. And that is something that I always like to do is you gave me a little snippet of it. I'm like, interesting. That's not what I think, but I always like to go tell me more about that. And I do that every day in my facilitations with our clients, because what you've said, yes, for 99% of it, I absolutely wholeheartedly agree. There needs to be alignment between you and your business, between who your business serves, who your business attracts, who is helping you serve your clientele, all the things between you and strategic partners. If you're going to go co-deliver a workshop, they need to believe what you believe. They need to align with your values. Their values don't need to be the same, but you need to see how they come together and they gel and how they flow together, because that can just cause unnecessary friction and tension in any part of the relationship. And people feel that. Here's the one piece that my clients taught me, and it's not going to be strange to anybody who's done any branding exercise. We talk about the personality, persona, or character of your company.
Okay.
And what I realized in bringing that into what we call the you elements of the business, where we're really digging into your leadership team's fundamental beliefs and truths, is when we started to develop the character of the company. I tell people, imagine that what we're doing is we're setting up its personality. We want to know if you were going to send your business, it was a real person, and you were going to send them into a room with your community. What would they be like? How would they show up? What would it feel like to be around them? And what feelings do we want the company to elicit in people anytime that it touches them? And there's so many touch points. That can be your people, your brochure, your website, all the things, your advertising. And so you've got personality characteristics, you've got the feelings. And in order to elicit those feelings, to produce those feelings and interactions, you need to consider what is the general tone of voice of the company.
Sure.
Right? Is it a little wacky? I'm loud. I can be bold. Read as sometimes abrasive because I like 4-letter words, right? That's all right. I already showed up early in the podcast, right? That's who I am. And that's how I need to express myself. When we started developing the character and talking about it as its own entity, I can actually physically see a business owner relax, because all of a sudden the weight of the company is not on their shoulders, right? So we say, I give you permission to let it live on its own. And that separation I have found to be key and critical, because when you're building a young business or you're going through turbulent times and you feel like it's all on you, that it is a part of you, that you are the business, I think that there's an inherent unnecessary pressure that is assumed by the business owner. And I love being able to create that separation. So I think there is very much a direct reflection, and the company needs to genuinely be in alignment with you. Otherwise, it just becomes a job, a job, just over broke, right?
Yes, I love it. The reflection and alignment. And I think you and I are actually very much talking the same talk, but with a different and critical distinction. And I love that you brought this up, because when I'm talking about my connection to my company, you're right. With the words that we say, we have to be careful not to be like, I am positively productive. And it's funny because I wasn't thinking that I was, but I wanted them to reflect each other. So that's a great word, that there's reflection and alignment, but making sure that it's separate. I can see that being so beneficial, not only in terms of business decisions and choices, but whenever you have that separation, and we've seen that psychologically in so many different ways, we've talked about it on the podcast in so many different ways, any bit of separation allows for the kind of disconnect that you need. And what I mean by that is the place where you can pause, where you can think about something, where you can separate out your own emotions and give yourself that moment to process things fully and maybe a bit more objectively. I could just see so many benefits to thinking about it in that persona idea as a separate entity. I mean, yeah, if I think about that with Positively Productive, I mean, it's a separate persona, but we'd totally be besties and have tacos.
Yeah, you have to be, right? You have to be.
Yeah, I love that. So with the idea that we have our business, our personal brands, we want them to reflect each other, but we're not necessarily saying that they are one and the same. And and it's such an interesting concept, because I think sometimes people out there, especially influencers and stuff like that, might be inclined to say that. So I think this is an important distinction that we're making. What happens next? Let's talk a bit about, you were talking about how we differentiate ourselves, how where we're connecting and aligning with the personal and business brands. So maybe if you could describe for us more about what we need to be thinking about, where they match, where we can potentially veer off, and how we are like making these choices.
That's a really great question. And I haven't had it asked that way before. I think that actually creates some aha moments in my own head, right? We're always learning as we go. I think as you were illustrating, because you're also a hand talker like I am. So if we think about us as the leader of the company, we are a leader that is a role. And you have zones of genius, or you have things that you're good at or that you've been trained at. You also have things that you've been trained at that you might be good at, that you might hate doing, that you can offload. So then whatever it is that you offload as you start to grow the business and remove the hats and say, hire a VA, hire a business manager, outsource some of your design, but you have contractors who effectively become a part of your business. It doesn't really matter how you pay them, as long as they're acting in alignment with. As the owner, you have a role, and you choose the roles that you have. So that is effectively your responsibility, is to determine how the work gets divvied up into the role. So you are a person that steps into that role. The business, again, is that separate entity of the business. Are you tracking with me so far?
Yes, so far so good.
So if we look at it that way, and I'm thinking CEO of a large organization, right? They go home to their families. They have their own passions outside of work. They might even have a side hustle outside of work. So there's a whole other entity of their life. But when they show up to work, they show up in this role. That is exactly the same for a solopreneur. When you create that separation between business and self, that is the same situation for a small business where you've got, a president, a founder, they're in a role, or they're in multiple roles, but they show up as themselves. And then as they add people, we're looking to attract those, again, I come back to who believe what we believe, who believe in our purpose, who want to help us achieve our vision, who get excited about where we're going and creating this change that we seek to make in the world, and who align with our values. They show up as themselves. You might hire someone who, like yourself, brings the energy into the room and can find ways to make boring topics. I mean, productivity, you think productivity, you don't think products, you think systems. Mm-hmm. And that is a very left-brained and can be quite a technical, structured role. Well, mm-hmm. to have someone who brings fun to that to help us achieve our vision and help us achieve our purpose, that's just a gift, right? So people bring their gifts and their personalities and themselves to the business, but it needs to, again, align with the business. So it's kind of like the Jenga board. All the pieces are coming together. But think about if you stick the wrong person in because you need someone who is highly skilled, but they don't jive with the rest of the folks on your team. And they're not really, like, I know the business has a purpose and I'll talk to it, but it's neither here nor there for me. And well, I get that your values are this, but I'm not that way. So just pay me my paycheck and right. You can feel that the tension.
Yeah. I'm like, I got to shake off my shoulders here because that's just,
It's just like throwing a kink in the spine. You're just like jamming something in there for the sake of creating that solution, but it's not the right solution.
Right. So the way that I'm envisioning what you're describing, and I think this is really helpful to kind of make the distinction for us as entrepreneurs, is that we have our personal brand, we have our business brand, and I see the business as being like this umbrella, and we're definitely reflecting the two. And we, as the creators of this business, bring so much to the table, but then ultimately it is this separate entity that we are then a part of, a cog in the, function of it. And when you look at it that way, for some reason, this is bringing it up for me. A couple of books I want to mention. So one, you talked about Zone of Genius, and I love that you did that. So just a reminder, I've mentioned it here on the podcast a ton of times. There's a link on my free resources page right to the book. Okay. The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. Okay. Fabulous. The other one, for some reason, this idea of separating out, right? Especially when you start as a solo entrepreneur, it's reminding me of the E-Myth and the E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber. And that concept of, it's that detachment or that separation. And it's interesting that you and I started this conversation of how are we connected with the personal and the business brand? But really it's not just, are we connected? Are we separated? But it's where we need to be connected and where we need to be separated.
Absolutely.
Okay. I think that's what we need to walk away with. So when we're taking the first steps to be like, am I connected in the right place? What am I doing here? Okay. Karley, my mind is blown. What do I do next? How do we go about, like, just a couple first steps, I guess, or even the first step to reflecting properly on this? What do we do next?
For me, it always starts with clarity. If I'm having a cheeky day and people say, so what is it that you do? What is it you sell? I say, I sell clarity. Here's why. What I have seen is when our clients come to us, they're lacking confidence, which leads to discomfort, right? So they're lacking confidence on, let's talk about the problems we solve. Their marketing is no longer working. They don't know what marketing they need to be doing. They're not able to attract the top talent that they need to help serve their clients. They aren't sure who their clients are. So they're not confident in the conversations they're having, or they're not confident in the story they're telling about their own business, right? So what clarity do we need? As I would suggest, is getting as clear as you can on your purpose, because I know purpose can be elusive, especially if you're talking about personal purpose. I work with students. Sometimes I get to do a lot of speaking at universities and colleges and different programs for really amazing, inspiring, brilliant, up and coming entrepreneurs. Some of them are like crystal clear. I'm like, I wish I was like that when I was your age. But then there's others who I know 40s, 50s, 60s. They're like, I've never really found my purpose. Like I'm multi-passionate, right? But get as close as you can and just let it evolve and pay attention to what lights you up. Why do you get out of bed in the morning? Like, what about serving this particular set of clients, creating this change in this industry, helping further create change in the world? Why does that get you out of bed in the morning? Why? Right. Go to Simon Sinek. His model is fantastic. So start with
that.
Why.
Yep.
Right. Then figure out, what are your personal values? Because when you understand what they are and you can align the business and invite people into the business and make choices about who you're working with that are aligned with your values, it's going to create you a lot less friction, which equals to a lot more productivity, right?
Yeah. And the way that I describe it in terms of the productivity lens is when we are very clear on these things, our purpose, our values, right? They become filters that make it so much easier to say yes, say no, to create the boundaries that we need to protect what we're trying to achieve, all of it. It becomes the filters that you match it up and you're like, I'm being asked for XYZ. Let me look at my list of filters here. This does not match. Therefore, it does not belong. Therefore, it equals no.
Yeah.
Oversimplifying it, but it actually does work that simply once you figure out, you dig in with the clarity.
Once you get the clarity, right? I mean, you're effectively describing a piece of what we call the surefire strategy, the strategy before all other strategies in the business. Asking yourself, if I do this, make this decision, hire this person, take on this opportunity, am I demonstrating that we're living our purpose? Asking those same question again, if we do this thing, make this decision, are we living our values and is it in alignment with our values? Is it going to move us closer to achieving our vision? And does it fit the overall general character of the company? That's it. That's the surefire strategy. Challenge is you got to get the clarity first. And why do I keep harping on clarity? Here it is. Clarity drives the confidence you need to make the right decisions and take action. When you take those actions, it creates traction. Traction drives results. Results drive success.
Yeah, and it all starts with that. It's absolutely true. And one of the things that I've worked on with my clients, and so this should be encouraging, is that when you have clarity and you have that confidence, then you make a decision, right, with those things. Ultimately, there are tons of choices out there and you can go in any number of directions. So we get past the fear of, am I making the right choice? And saying, I'm making the right choice based on how I'm feeling right now, all the data, all the input, all the clarity that I have. I'm confident, I'm going in this direction. And then you'll course correct if necessary. You'll congratulate yourself if necessary. You make a choice confidently, not because there's an absolute, like that's the right way to go, but that you absolutely feel that based on the work you've done prior that you're talking about. I love it.
I love that so much.
So this is the best place to wrap up because we want just those first couple of steps to take to head in this direction. And then as they need more support, tell us where we can find you.
I hang out on LinkedIn. It is my main channel. And so you can find me at Karley Cunningham, and Karley is spelled Karley. Our website is bigboldbrand.com.
Great. And I'll have those links in the show notes. And now let's have a little fun with a rapid wrap up, shall we?
Here we go.
Woohoo! All right. So please fill in the blanks. A song that lifts my spirits, makes me dance every time is?
One Shot, Eminem.
Oh, so good. Yeah. You only got one shot. Okay, how about a quote or a mantra that inspires me that I love to share?
I'm going to tie it back to the episode today. Oscar Wilde, be yourself. Everyone else is taken.
That's a fantastic one. I love it. Okay, how about a resource? It could be a book or an app other than the ones we've already mentioned, just something, and it doesn't have to be productivity or brand related, but just something that has made my life better is?
Ooh. So I'm staring at it right now. I know it well because I have lived the methodology and I'm actually living the back end of the methodology right now. I happen to be the main character in the book. The reason I'm sharing is not because I'm the main character, because this is not all about me. It's about I know it works and I love the model and I love the person who put it out in the world. And that is The Widest Net by Pamela Slim. And it really ties into all the things we were talking about today. It ties into my work and your work. So that's why I'm throwing it out there.
Love it. Okay, I'm going to add that to the resources. All right, and then last, but definitely not least, what are you grateful for today, Karley?
I am grateful for the rain, even though it's teeming down here. It just means that British Columbia is going to have a safer summer this year.
Gotta love that. Well, I am grateful for you, that we connected, that you joined us today, and that you're shining your light so brightly in this world, and you came to share it with us.
Thank you so much, and thank you for doing what you do and changing the world and making it a better place.
Thank you for joining me today. Your time is precious and limited, and I'm honored you chose to spend it with me. If you have feedback, questions, or want to schedule a chat, head to positivelyproductive.com/connect. And if you are looking for any of the resources referenced on the podcast, from books to products to training and more, go to positivelyproductive.com/resources.